Take your eyes off Donbass and the bombed streets of Kharkiv for a moment. Look south. On the Zaporizhzhia steppe, Russia just carried out its largest retreat on the southern front in recent days, and Ukraine logged its biggest territorial gain in a short window since June 2023. Months of steady pressure finally forced a break, and once the line broke, it did not bend, it moved. In the next 12 minutes, watch how a 10-kilometer pullback turned into a chain, settlements flipped, convoys cut, drones opened corridors, and even communications got hit. Ukraine's Southern Defense Forces spokesperson, Vladislavian, said Russian attempts to advance toward the Dnipro region were repelled by counterattacks and offensive operations in the Alexandrivka sector. Fighting was described as difficult near Alexandrivka, on the border of the Donetsk, Dnipropetrovsk, and Zaporizhzhia regions. But Ukrainian troops said they stopped the push toward Dnipropetrovsk and the village of Pokrovskoe. He added that several Russian units lost combat capability and the ability to conduct offensive operations, while Ukrainian armored units created new momentum. Then the battlefield delivered the line that matters. In the Zaporizhzhia, Dnipro direction, Russian forces withdrew from roughly 10 kilometers of territory they had occupied over 60 days, lost in just 168 hours. And that was only the visible edge of the retreat. The pullback created deep cracks in the local command structure. Ukrainian forces advanced along the Hure and Dnipro rivers, liberating more than 10 settlements. Each village had been used as an outpost to pressure Ukrainian defense lines. Under that reversal, Russian forces fell back to the east bank of the Dnipro River. The center of gravity was Ukraine's 225th Separate Assault Regiment, fighting near Julip Pole. Assault teams cleared Russian positions in 2 villages near Julip. In one day, the unit reported neutralizing 40 Russian soldiers. But the moment that signaled a break came at close range in Starokranka. Fighters penetrated Russian positions, took a large number of prisoners, searched them, and evacuated them alive. Video showed Ukrainian troops sparing those who surrendered, in line with the Geneva Conventions. The mechanism behind it was coordination, Black Swan strike elements inside the regiment structure, UAV pilots, and infantry assault groups moving as one. And where Russian positions lacked electronic warfare protection, UAVs struck first, creating safe approach corridors that let assault groups reach positions with almost no losses. That corridor work was one of the key elements that pushed Russian troops back 10 kilometers from Zaporizhzhia. But the 225th alone did not force a retreat of this size. Ukraine kept the tempo. The 475th Independent Assault Regiment executed a sharp, weather-sensitive attack based on precise intelligence, marked by intensive use of fiber-optic-controlled UAVs. The point of fiber optic is simple: control holds even in heavy electronic warfare. That technology helped enable trench areas described as 4 to 5 kilometers deep. The sequence started with logistics. Trucks supplying frontline resources in Zaporizhzhia were targeted, and the convoy was destroyed by airstrikes before it reached Russian forces. Then ground troops flushed Russians out of underground trenches in forested areas. On completion, the regiment recaptured key positions that had been prepared for a Russian advance on Zaporizhzhia, securing the Ori-Zaporizhzhia line and stripping away forward positions that formed the basis of a large-scale offensive planned for summer 2026. In the same area, the 33rd Separate Assault Regiment cleared Russian occupation forces from Kozvy on February 11, 2026. It was described as an infantry assault supported by UAVs against Russian soldiers who had infiltrated the village and settled inside residential buildings, building clearance and close quarters combat, executed as part of the wider tempo. Airborne units then added a second engine. The 82nd and 95th Airborne Brigades were redeployed from the Pokrovsk sector and joined the offensive line east of Zaporizhzhia. Both brigades are units of the 7th Air Assault Corps. The 82nd Brigade was described as effective along the Zila-Nitnate-Vitko line. The 95th supported the advance on the eastern bank of the High River. Their light armored vehicles and rapid mobility exploited gaps, added operational depth, and made countermeasures harder, helping push Russian forces roughly 10 kilometers toward the eastern bank of the Dnipro. Across the open plains, Russian forces tried small assaults and evacuated wounded using light, fast ATVs. A Ukrainian unit known as the Iron Falcon Team, BBS 67 OBM, built hunting tactics around that weakness. Those ATVs, praised as effective by Russian Defense Minister Andrei Belousov in August 2024, were described as helpless against Iron Falcon FPV drones. Modified FPVs turned into high-speed maneuverable weapon systems guided by real-time video. The result was simple. It sharply reduced the chances of Russian infiltration in Zaporizhzhia. Then the fight moved behind the line. The Requiem group of Ukraine's Ballista Special Forces was deployed to cut supply lines, ammunition, fuel, and personnel by attacking Russian truck convoys. Reconnaissance UAVs tracked movement. FPVs hit the front and rear, immobilized vehicles in the middle, and used swarm tactics to destroy or capture the convoy. Fuel tanker hits mattered most. Once the fuel burns, mechanized units lose mobility, and a retreat becomes harder to organize. Open-source analysts using visually verified data estimated the inventory losses in this narrow sector as staggering. They listed 12 to 15 T-80BV and T-72B, three main battle tanks, about 30 to 40 million, plus more than 20 armored combat vehicles, about 15 to 20 million, along with special electronic warfare systems that take months to produce. In total, Russia was estimated to have scrapped roughly 60 to 70 million worth of modern equipment in 1 week, inside an area of only 10 kilometers. Even under that damage, Russian channels tried to manufacture a victory. They claimed troops entered Ternivade and raised the Russian flag. The reality described was different. The flag was raised in a gray zone outside the village, where no one lived, while Ukrainian troops were breaking through Russian lines far beyond Tuvate. It was a screen victory designed to boost morale and cover lost villages on the map. It did not change what the retreat had already created, a logistics problem. The 10 kilometers Ukraine recaptured brought the city of Palo, Russia's most critical logistical hub in the region, within lethal range of Ukraine's 155mm artillery. Ukraine does not need to enter Palo, it only needs to see it and be able to hit it. Last week, Russian trains could unload ammunition at the Palo I station and distribute it forward. Now that station is a target zone. Russia would have to unload ammunition 40 to 50 kilometers behind the front line, but drones track trucks 24/7 and destroy them in mass attacks when they form convoys. This breach in the Julipol-Palo I line became an alarm bell for Russian logisticians in Crimea. It also helps explain why Russia began moving air defense systems in Crimea northward, tied to these 9.5 kilometers. And there is a wider implication. The advance in Zaporizhzhia indirectly threatens the land connection between Crimea and the Russian mainland, vital for sustaining Russia's presence on the peninsula. One reason Russia ended up here was described as mismanagement, failure to deploy experienced units at the right time and place, and failure in logistics and defense. The 810 Marine Infantry Brigade was described as unable to hold defensive positions against deep Ukrainian maneuvers, despite experienced personnel from the Mariupol and Karen operations. Elements of the 58th Combined Arms, Army, and various motorized regiments were also forced to retreat under similar pressure. Geography tightened the retreat. The Dnipro River was initially used as part of the Russian defense. Once Ukrainian forces crossed it, it became an obstacle for Russian withdrawal. As troops withdrew to the east bank, they lost bridges and crossing points, narrowing routes and making them easy targets for artillery and UAV fire. Observation points monitored Russian movement and directed artillery. At the same time, the range of Russian artillery reaching the city of Zaporizhzhia and civilian settlements was significantly reduced, vital for lowering civilian casualties and protecting infrastructure. This was also framed as positive for the safety of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, with risk near the plant likely decreasing. And then came the communications hit. A Ukrainian cyber group collected identity information and terminal coordinates from Russian soldiers trying to reactivate Starlink terminals, transferred 2,420 data packets to Ukrainian agencies, and used that data to put terminals into brick mode, disabling them. With Starlink down, Russian soldiers were forced to manually repair cables in the middle of the battlefield. Russian propaganda tried to distort the picture, amplified by Vladimir Soloviev.
Потому что когда-то мы не взяли Харьков и не взяли Чернигов. Хотя они были практически в кольце, но мы проявили добрую волю.
While Ukraine's drone strikes, ambush work, and technology kept producing losses. The bottom line, Ukraine now has ground, momentum, and a logistics lever. Ukrainian morale is described as rising, while Russian confidence is shaken, and that shift can ripple into future clashes and into how allies judge Kyiv's leverage. But consolidation matters. Mine clearance and pushing remaining forces out are the next hard steps. For now, the initiative has shifted, and Russia is stuck, waiting in uncertainty.